With my 2 residents full of resolve, they set about exploring the various other rooms around the enchanting workshop, and it doesn't take long before they find the library. It's not a gigantic library, but it still definitely deserves the title. It's got shelves on all the walls, several rows of shelves away from the walls, and what looks like a lectern or something to do your reading on. Ugh, no couches or anything to be comfortable. I suppose it makes sense. The Lich probably wouldn't lounge on a couch reading a comic or something. Yvonne doesn't seem to care about the lack of comfortable reading spots though, and simply grabs a random book off a shelf. She glances inside the cover before pulling it back and grabbing the next book. She frowns when she looks inside and sighs at the contents of the 3rd book in line. They're not organised at all. The first was a book on trade routes from a century ago, then a book on poetry, and this one seems to be a cookbook of all things. She gives the room a wary eye, and I have to agree with her body language. That's going to be a lot of work to transform into an actual usable library. At least it means there's probably not much actually dangerous in here. It looks like they're both going to be poking around the library for a bit, so I leave them to it for now. I still have a mess in the graveyard to sort out. I don't know if anyone is going to want to use the place for burying bodies anymore, but I want it in presentable condition. I don't need no rubble and dismembered corpses littering the resting places of whoever's buried here. I don't need wandering corpses either, so I set them all to the mausoleum and have Tiny web the door closed before letting him head back to the maze. I think he liked the field trip, but the big lug is definitely more of a homebody than a scion like Timo. Speaking of scions, I'm in a bit of a pickle. At the house, everything is running nice and smoothly because of all my scions, but I don't have any scions over in the cemetery or in the caves. I mean, I have Jello in the caves, and she seems to be just having a ball down there. It's hard to tell with slimes, but I'm pretty sure she's enjoying herself. At the very least, she's patrolling, keeping things from getting too far in. But she can't handle both the caves and... I'm going to call it the crypt complex for now. It seems like it was more or less the Lich's stomping grounds. There's a bunch of rooms and such. Maybe I should try to move my rattlings in here? They're doing well enough in the caves under the house, but it's a bit crowded over there. Additionally, there's still the whole surface cemetery. I never had much reason to think about how to care for one before I died, so I'm not sure what I'll actually need. The more I think about it though, the more I think I'll need to unweb the undead mausoleum after all. Alright, let's take an actual look at what these spawners can do. First, the zombie spawner. Technically it's fleshy undead, because that's more comforting than just calling it a zombie spawner, I guess. Pretty much all of the options are unsavory in my opinion. Ghouls, ghasts, wights, skinwalks. I never thought zombies would be my best bet, but there it is. I'll leave it for now. The skeleton spawner has a few options, but they boil down to various flavours of fighting or magic skeleton. I don't really want either. Though come to think of it, my scions basically grow into whatever role I seem to assign them, so maybe it won't matter. At least for the scion. I do have an idea for what I want him to do. I'll have to not have an undead scion, but I think I have to work with what I'm being given. I'll need to check the other spawners before I do, though. I want to make sure I have enough mana for everything. I'd expected the bee spawner to act like the ant spawner, but it seems like it will let me spawn a scion without much fuss. I wonder if any of the books in the library has info on bees. I thought they would form new hives, like ant form new hills, but apparently not. I have an idea for what to use a bee scion for, too, and looks like it won't cost too much either. Still, on to the next spawner. The second rat spawner doesn't let me have a second rat scion. Lame. At least with pack rats over here now, too. I can get loot running, and so get more mana. The hand spawner has all sorts of options for hands, which I wasn't expecting. There's the skeletal hands that seem to be the scouts. There's zombie hands that seem to be ambush attackers, maybe similar to my spiders. And then there's just hands. They seem to be gifted with magic, but that's all the info I can get without spawning a scion. I take a moment to make sure I have plenty of mana to spend on these, and I do. Neverest really did give me a boatload of mana. I've been kind of burning through it, but I think I'll be able to slow things down a bit after getting my new scion spawned. I go for the hand scion first, and I of course dub it Thing. It doesn't seem to have the cheekiness Thing on TV has, but that's fine. I send it to the enchanting lab to get acquainted with the tools there. I had considered having Fluffles be in charge of my enchanting, but I like him being more able to wander around and deal with trouble. Besides, I'm not in any real rush to get magic stuff, so I can let Thing take its time. I'll need to spend more mana later to upgrade the secret enchanting lab, but that can come later. Next up is the bee scion, who I'm calling Honey. I send her and her little swarm to the library. Looks like Aranya and Yvonne are exploring around the complex by now, so they don't get to greet the new scion. I tell Timo to prioritise a few trails from the library to the surface when he gets a chance. Honey is going to be a busy bee, but if Quinn can handle leaf cutter and stuff and alchemy stuff, I'm sure Honey can handle a library alongside bee duties. The last scion, though, I have a unique plan for. I'm glad the Ratlings can kind of make things, because I'm going to need some things. I need my spiders to help with this too. Thankfully it doesn't cost much mana, since it's not really anything they haven't done before. Well, except for the dye, but that's just coal and water. Not exactly a complex process. My Skelly exits the crypt and closes the door behind him, not seeming to be bothered by the odd task I have for him. From the tunnels come a few Ratlings, carrying what I asked them to make. Firstly, a long black robe. Even if I'm in good standing, I get the feeling I shouldn't parade around naked undead. Insert boner joke here. Also insert joke about inserting boners here too. The second thing is a scythe. My Ratlings don't seem to have master steel just yet, but they can handle iron. It's nice and sharp, and he looks nice and sharp in his get-up. I'ma call him Grim, the Grounds Reaper, and I set him to his first task, using a scythe for its intended purpose. The grass here is way too shaggy. He barely gets started before I have two delvers. I'm pleased to see it's Alera and Ragnar. They're back in their regular does now, too, so I see things are more or less settled. They give Grim wary looks, which fade to confusion as they see him mowing the lawn. Ragnar seems to be the first to gather his thoughts about what they're seeing, and he laughs. Ah, this dungeon has a sense of humour. Alara can only shake her head and chuckle in agreement. Indeed. Come, let us see if we can find Yvonne or a sign to lead us to her. We need to talk about the guild's response to what's transpired.